Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Hello everybody. Just hang on a couple of seconds. Sorry if I'm a little bit late. The Wi-Fi here is absolutely appalling and it's been under great stress today, unfortunately. But anyway, so far, so good. It seems to be working. So welcome everybody to the 7th of these Monday evening talks. Would you believe 7? How many more, I hear you asking? When will it stop? Well, the answer to that is I'll keep going as long as you are happy to watch, or until I get a haircut, whichever comes first. Today, you'll be glad to know I'm not going to ask you to sing, and certainly nothing difficult. But I thought I would talk to you about suspensions, which is something we come across a great deal, especially in the sort of music that we do a lot of. And I'm sure many of you know very well what a suspension is, but just in case there's any confusion, I thought I would hope to clarify it a little bit tonight, just by talking about what the suspension is, how it comes about, and what it's for, what the purposes of it are. In order to talk about a suspension, we need to be clear about what is consonance and what is dissonance. In other words, what we associate as being a chord that we appreciate, and what we consider to be a dissonance, a chord which sounds angry or harsh or whatever. And the thing about consonance and dissonance is that it's not something that's been invented or it's become down to us as a cultural aesthetic. Far from it. It actually is a natural phenomenon that exists in maths and physics, and was first identified by Pythagoras in, 500 years BC, I guess, around then anyway. So Pythagoras pointed out, or was aware of, the fact that if you take an 8-foot string and allow it to vibrate, you will get a particular pitch, which in this case would be that pitch, which is the low C below the bass clef. If you then half the length of the string, but maintain exactly the same tension, then you'll get a note which is exactly an octave higher. So the fundamental note, the 8-foot note, would be that C. 4-foot note would be an octave higher. If you then halve the length of the string again, you then get not an octave higher, but a 5th higher. So we've now got the low C, the C above that, the G above that, which is perfect 5th, and the next one will be a 4th. So we've now got C, C, G, C. And then if we halve the length of the string again, the next note will be a smaller interval still. Instead of a 4th, this time it's going to be a major 3rd. In this case, the E natural. So now we've got C, C, G, C, E natural, which sounds remarkably like a major triad, a major chord. If we go on, if we continue this harmonic series, as it's called, the next interval is a minor 3rd. So then we get another G, and then a rather flatter minor 3rd, which will give you your B flat, and then a whole tone, which gives you our top C, and then a series of semitones and smaller intervals going up from there. But all of that is what's known as the harmonic series, and it's based on every single note. So not only does that dictate what a major chord sounds like, but when you think about it, it's also present for every single time you play that bottom C. All the notes that I just played are present when I play that single C down there. You may not be aware of them, and you probably can't hear them over the wonders of this electronics. But if we were sitting in the same room, then you would be able to hear, for instance, that middle C is sounding even when I play the low C. That G is very prominent. This G is very prominent, and so on. And it's those upper harmonics, as they're called, the upper partials of the fundamental, that contribute to the tonal aspect of the piece, of the sound. So, for instance, that's why an oboe sounds different from a violin or from a flute, because the way in which the upper harmonics are displayed, i.e. how they sound, makes a complete difference to how the instrument sounds to us. It's what gives it the tone, the individual tone of a musical instrument. So, as I said, if all these notes are sounding, whether we're aware of it or not, if you add lots of notes consecutively, for instance, in this case, I'm playing C, D, and E. I'm not just playing those three pitches, I'm also playing all their upper partials, their harmonics as well. So you're getting all of those pitches are being played at the same time, whether we are conscious of them or not. They are there, they are audible, they are part of the structure of those individual notes. So you can see that if you play notes which are very close together, the closer they are together, the more not only the notes themselves conflict, but also their upper harmonics conflict hugely. Which is why we associate that clashing of different pitches as a dissonance, rather than the consonance that we associate with the natural notes of the harmonic series. Now this, as I said, it's nothing to do with aesthetics, it's nothing to do with cultural patterns, it's all to do with the laws of physics and the laws of maths. And it's maybe, if you think of it as the equivalent of maybe symmetry, or the kind of reaction you get to a beautiful building where all the proportions are absolutely right. That is the equivalent of a consonance. Now, what's this got to do with suspensions, I hear you asking? Well, if we go from one chord to another, we've got three individual consonances, one after the other. In this case, something like, a bit like Three Blind Mice. Now, if I delay one of the parts, so all I've done is keep one of the notes of the first chord suspended over the second chord, and then it resolves downwards. It's a bit like being hung over the cliff. You hold it there, it makes a statement, and then you bring it in. So you lift that top note there, keep it hanging over the cliff, then you bring it in, it resolves downwards, and we're back to a consonance again. This is what's known as a 6/5 suspension, because the E natural is a sixth above the bass note G, and it resolves to a fifth above the bass note. It also works particularly well in a minor key. And it can also lead on to further suspensions. So, for instance, there's another one. And again, it resolves downwards. In this case, it's a 4/3. The second suspension was a C above the G, fourth above the G, so known as a 4/3 suspension, and then it resolves as you would expect. So, what are these suspensions used for? Well, inevitably, they're used as a way of coloring the music. They produce moments of tension And that tension is very suitable for moments of pain, anguish, raw emotion, suffering, anything like that, whether it's in religious music or in a theatrical setting, for instance. It's used a great deal, especially in the Baroque period. And it's also, and perhaps this is something which we tend to overlook, suspensions are a great way of driving the music forwards. It produces a sense of momentum in the direction of the music, because if you don't have any suspensions, then we could stop anywhere. It has no natural flow, because at any point you're sitting on a consonance, you're sitting on a nice chord, which is easy to listen to, and you could stop there and have no intention of going forwards. But as soon as you put the suspensions in, it drives the music forward, it produces momentum, it produces a feeling of the music going somewhere, a sense of direction. And that's where today's piece comes in as a great example of what I've been talking about. This is a piece called Crucifixus, and it's by Antonio Lotti. And I'll just set it into some context. Antonio Lotti was obviously an Italian composer. He was born in 1667, so just, let's say, 24 years after Monteverdi died, and maybe 18 years before Bach and Handel were born. So right bang in the middle between Monteverdi, the earliest of Baroque composers, Monteverdi, Heinrich Schütz, those sort of people, and the late Baroque composers that we associate, Bach and Handel and Rameau, and even Vivaldi. Lotti was born 11 years, I think, before Vivaldi was born. So he comes in that slot, sort of mid-period Baroque music. And although he was born in Venice, and he worked there a lot as a singer and as a composer, and he actually finished his life as a maestro di cappella, the boss of St. Mark's in Venice, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, just for the last few years of his life. But in 1717 to 1719, he moved to Dresden for a short period, working at the Dresden court. And it was while he was in Dresden that he wrote a setting of the Credo, the Nicene Credo, in fact, in F. And it's from that work that this setting of the Crucifixus is taken. And the extraordinary thing about Lotti is that he was a very prolific composer. He wrote loads of church music, madrigals, cantatas, motets. He even wrote 30 operas. And yet, pretty much the only piece that he's remembered for is this setting of the Crucifixus. And it's even more strange than that, because there's more than one. There are several versions of this same text written by Lotti. There's one in 8 parts, which is the one I'm talking about today. There's one in 6 parts, one in 5 parts, one in 10 parts. You could have a whole concert program of settings of the Crucifixus by Lotti. But those are pretty much the only pieces that get performed very much today. And the 8-part one, as I say, is the one piece that everybody remembers. It sounds a bit sad for somebody who was so prolific, but I have to say, if I'd written this piece, I would be quite happy to remember for this and nothing else. It's that good. Now, this setting, the Crucifixus, as I'm sure you don't need me to remind you, it's a setting of the text. He was crucified also for us, suffered under Pontius Pilate, was dead and buried. Words that we're very familiar with from the Creed. So it's pretty mournful stuff. It's very, very emotional. It's very religiously significant. So it's a very, very intense feel that Lotti gets from his use of the 8 voices, one after the other, climbing in above each other. So the basses start very low, then the first basses come in, and then the second tenor, first tenor, second alto, and so on, all in order, rising steeply, and with a series of these very intricate, very rich suspensions. The music grows in intensity from beginning to end. It's amazing to think it's only 41 bars long. It's a very, very short piece, but in those 41 bars are no fewer than 49 suspensions. It is quite extraordinary. Now, originally, this piece was written for the 8-part voices with an organ continuo. And the continuo is just a part written out with figures to play the harmonies, to play the chords underneath the voices. Some people perform it unaccompanied, but I think it was quite clear that it was intended originally to be performed with the organ, because some of the chords add even more richness, and some of the bass notes that the organ plays are different from the voice parts. So it's definitely much richer to have the accompaniment as well. I'm going to give you an indication of hopefully what it sounds like. This time, on this occasion, obviously played on the piano, which is not ideal, but at least it gives you an idea. So it starts. Sub Poncio Pilato. Certainly one of the best examples of the consistent and continuous use of suspensions that I know of in the repertoire. And that's what this piece has become famous for. It is absolutely stunningly beautiful. There are some amazing performances out there. People like 16, Tenebrae, all the really good vocal ensembles have issued recordings of this great piece. So do have a listen to it. I warmly encourage you to have a listen. I think you will definitely enjoy this. And I hope we have, even if we thought we knew what suspensions were, I hope this has been a little bit of enlightenment, and that your understanding is a little clearer perhaps than it was before. But let me know if there's anything else in particular that you would like me to talk about. anything that you've always had a mystery about, or anything that needs clarification, or indeed a piece of music that you would like me to introduce and talk about, so that other people can share it as well. Just let me know and I will do what I can. All the best, all the very best to you all. Keep well and enjoy the sunshine, and I'll speak to you again next week. Bye for now. Apparently everybody waves at the end of sessions, don't they? Zoom calls, wave. Mad. Bye.